Mimer is called ונקדשתי בתוך בני ישראל. So let's begin. It's in Shabbos Parshas Emor Yud Gimel Iyar Tavshin Chafei, which is also the yard site of the Rebbe's brother Rabbi Yalei. So it says in our parsha, it says ונקדשתי בתוך בני ישראל, אני Hashem מקדיש. Says two things. One thing is ונקדשתי בתוך בני ישראל, I will become sanctified within the Bnei Yisrael. So the point over here, it's inside the Yidden, like we'll soon see. And also, Ani Hashem Mekadishka, that it's coming something from outside, not the Toich of Bnei Yisrael. I am Hashem, the one that's sanctifying. The Alter Rebbe explains in the Maimer that begins with this pasuk on our parsha, on Parshas Emor, that what it says, that I will become holy and sanctified within the Bnei Yisrael, meaning. So he says in the parentheses right away, explains it. It's the revelation of the Eibishter's holiness and sanctity in the heart of the Yid. So it's therefore something that's inside my heart. What type of revelation of Kedusha is inside my heart? It says, the lamato my law. That's in a way of coming from below to above. It's originating from me. A lot of this Maimer is going to be discussing this topic. The Kedusha that comes from the Yid, lamato my law, the Kedusha that comes from above, that Hashem sanctifies us. What does it mean? That the Kedusha is in my heart, it's coming from me. At the heart of the Yidden is burning like a flaming fire, is part to become consumed in the Eibishter's holiness by days, and through having this type of burning fire within the heart of the Yid. So afterwards, that's why it says further in the pasuk, I am the one that's sanctifying you. When we have that burning fire for Hashem, so the Eibishter's Kedusha comes down to us. I'm Shochet's Kedusha is Baruch my Lamata, the drawing down of the holiness of the Eibishter from above to below. That's the pasuk. The pasuk we have in this week's parsha. One pasuk, Nikdash of Sefer Yisrael, Ni Hashem Kadishchem. You have a fiery Kedusha in your heart. You have a fiery love for Hashem. You draw down that Hashem sanctified. This itself, and the drawing down from above to below. There are two components. That's what's being drawn down through Torah. That's one type of Amshacha that we say, that Hashem sanctifies us. And then there's Amshacha through the mitzvahs. And what's the difference between the two? It's not just that they're two are the same. Each one is distinct in what they bring down. He says in line 11, that which is being drawn down through Torah is in the inner parts of the world, meaning in the spiritual aspect of the world. Just like Torah itself is a spiritual activity. One's using their mind, they're thinking, they're connected with godly thoughts. There's no physicality to the idea of study of Torah. So therefore, the same thing, the Kedusha that it draws down is in the spiritual inner parts of the world. So that this level of Ani Hashem Mekadishchem, I Hashem am making you sanctified, should come down the external parts of the world. What's it mean, the external? The physicality of the world. Why they some mitzvahs through the actions of the mitzvahs, which the actions of the mitzvahs involve the whole time the physical, like many Amarach Sudas emphasize. So now the Rebbe connects this also, that we say in davening with Zel Masha Imrim Gimel Pam Kodesh. We say in davening 3 times Kodesh. Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. We're going to say this soon in davening. Those that haven't davened yet, the Kodesh Ha'alef, the first Kodesh is like we said before, ונקדשתי בתוך בני ישראל. I will become sanctified within your heart, meaning it's the Yid's doing. It's what a Yid sanctifies himself and has this burning love for Hashem. That's the first Kaddish. Kaddish HaBeis V'Agim, the second and third time that it says Kaddish, it's drawing down from above to below. The Torah by the mitzvahs. The second Kaddish is that was being brought down from above to below through Torah, but that only goes in the pnimius of the worlds. And then the second time Kaddish, it says that's because the third time Kaddish is the idea of being brought down Hashem's holiness and Hashem Mekadishchem through the level of mitzvahs. Second page in the Maimer Ois Beis. Mamshich b'habir la Maimer. In Likutei Torah, there are many Mamorim that have afterwards, it says, a beer on the Maimer. So the Maimer ונקדשתי בתוך ישראל, Likutei Torah in our parsha, has a beer on it. So in the explanation of the Maimer, he continues elaborating on this topic of the three Koddishes. That the three Koddishes correspond to three levels in the spiritual realm. Gimel Pavim Kaddish and Gimel Madregas. Three times we say Kaddish in davening, it's three different levels. Kaddish Aleph Keser Shalamayla Macha. The level of the first Kaddish is Keser, that's beyond Chach. Kaddish Abbez, the second Kaddish is Keser, the Zeir Ampin, it's the Keser of that is like the crown on top of the Midos. Sometimes it says that the inner level of Bina becomes a Keser, a crown to the level of the Midas. The Kaddish Hagimel or Keser de Malchus. And the third Kaddish is the Keser of Malchus, the Keser that Malchus has. So the Rebbe explains, connects this with the general idea of Seder Shtalshlus and the interconnectivity of the Ksadim in Seder Shtalshlus. The Rebbe says in line 5, you say the explanation this is, you do according to what it's known. Kaddish Bechlal, that Kaddish in general is referring to the light of Soiva Kalam. Why? Soiva means that it's encompassing, meaning it transcends, it's above and beyond the world. Kaddish and Muvdal Mishtalshlus, it's holy and separate from Seder Ishtalshlus. V'lachein ikarein in the Kaddish, therefore the main idea of Kaddish, what's the true Kaddish? Which level is completely and totally removed from Seder Ishtalshlus? Kaddish Aleph, the first Kaddish is the ultimate Kaddish. U'b'keser shalamayla ma'chachma, it's the spirit of, it's a level of Keser, it's beyond Spirit Chachma. Because since the Sfira of Chachma is the beginning of Seder Ishtalshlus, it's the first of the 10 Sfiras of the 4 Oilmas, so therefore, Keser, it's beyond Chachma, that is the total epitome of Kedusha, of something that's being completely removed from Seder Ishtalshlus. So then the question is the other way around. So why would the Keser that's on top of the Midas of Zeir Ampin, the Keser of Malchus, also be called Keser? Why would they call them Keser? Why are they holy? They're not holy. Seemingly they're not removed from Seder Ishtalshlus. It says in line 10, the fact that the Keser of the Midas and the Keser of Malchus are also called Kaddish. The chain descent of the levels that are called Keser is not like Ila Va'ol. In other words, there is a separate type of Seder Ishtalshlus for Keser. It's not just that, let's say we said before, that a certain level of Bina becomes a Keser for Zeir Ampin. It's not just that now it's part of that. It's not part of that. It's its own level from Keser that's higher than Chachma, the Keser that is the level of the Keser of Zeir Ampin, to the level of Keser of Malchus, in a way like bypasses, and it has its own line of Amshacha, distinct and different than the 10 Spheres have and the Oilmas have, and so on. So he explains how is it different. So he says, line 13, Sha Olul Umehus Acher Ma'il. The spheres, the way they come from each other, or the worlds, the way they come from each other, is in the way of Ilah and Olul. For lack of a better term in English, we'll call it cause and effect. But when we talk about cause and effect, so it's two separate things. That the Olul, the result, the effect is something completely distinct from the cause. You have Chachma is the cause of Bina. Seichel is the cause of Midas. Seichel is not a Midah. Midah is not a Seichel, even though one causes the other and one was part of the other beforehand and so on. but they're two distinct things. But when we talk about Keser, regardless if it's Keser that's higher than Chachma, or Keser that's on top of Zeir Amtu, or the Keser that's part of Malchus, all the levels of Keser are really one entity. Even after the descent of Keser to become a Keser for the Midas, or a Keser for Malchus, even then, he's in its same state, the way it was, the same essence, the way it was. Keser the level of Keser is beyond Chachma. The mashal for this, we've spoken about this on other occasions, is Keser is the level of will. Rotzen. There's a Rotzen that's higher than everything, it's the source for everything. There's the Rotzen that's higher than the worlds and higher than the spheres, and it wants all the spheres. And then there's a smaller Rotzen. There's the Rotzen that's higher than the Midas and wanted there should be Midas. There's the Rotzen that has to do with Malchus. But at its core, it's all Rotzen, it's all will. So whether it's the Keser of higher than Chachma, the Keser of Zeir Anpin, the Keser of Malchus, it's all Keser, it's all will. They didn't change. But when you go from Seichel to Midas, for example, or you go from Bria to Yitzir, or you go even from Atzilus to Bria, then it becomes totally changed. Seichel is not a Midah, Midah is not Seichel, Chachma is not Bina, Bina is not Chachma. But Keser is all the same, it's all Ratzin. A bigger Ratzin, a smaller Ratzin. He wants a bigger thing, he wants a smaller thing. But in Malchus, so it's a, if you will, a quantitative difference, not a qualitative difference, but it's all a Ratzin. Okay. So that's what the Alter Rebbe explains about the three Koddeshes in the not the Keser part. How it's all Keser. I mean, he does say it's Keser, but that's what he explains that the three levels of Kaddish are three levels of Keser. And he explains that in the beer on the Maimer ונקדשתי. The Rebbe is now going to connect it with what we said before. The Kaddish being Malmata Lamailo or being Malmailo Lamata, the Rebbe is going to connect what the Rebbe said in the Maimer, in the first part of the Maimer Mekut Torah versus the beer Mekut Torah. It says, last line on the second page of the Maimer, line 17, we could say, that which we say in the Maimer, in other words, in the beer on the Maimer, that the three times Kaddish are distinct levels in the spheres above. The Kaddish Aleph, the first Kaddish is the Keser that's higher than Chachma. The Kaddish Abayz Vagimel Hema Keser is there. The Malchus, the second and third Kaddish are the Keser of Midas and the Keser of Malchus. It's also explaining what he said in the first part of the Maimer of the style and the method, if it's going Malmata Lamayla, Malmayla. Kaddish Aleph, we said in the beginning of the Maimer of the Alter Rebbe that the first Kaddish is away from below to above. It's within the heart of the Yid. It's what the Yid is doing. The Kaddish Abayz Vagimel, the second and third Kaddish is in a way of coming from above to below, meaning that it's the level of Torah, the level of mitzvahs, etc. So he's saying, how does that fit in? How do we connect these two? So the Rebbe connects us as follows. Line 7. The Oira Soiviv, Keser Atzmoi, the light of Soiviv, which is Keser itself. So the Rebbe is going to say is something that is in a way counterintuitive. You say, Keser itself, how can you say B'soich B'nai Yisrael? It's coming Malmata L'mayla. That's the opposite. Even Shu Kaddish move to Lagamri, since it's totally holy and totally separate. Hagilish like Ba'adam, who Ba'ifin, Shu Margish, Zeu, Inyan, Shemuflam, Muvdalaman. How does it manifest in the person? When the person connects to that level, when a person relates to that level, when a person becomes aware of that level, his awareness is such that it's totally beyond, that it's totally not in his level whatsoever. Therefore, what type of emotion does it evoke by the person? It evokes by him a yearning to get to that thing that's like way beyond him. Therefore, he yearns and desires to leave his state that he's at and to become part of this thing that's way above him. But as opposed to that, when this light of Soiv Kalam descends, to become a Kesser for the Midas, for to be able to become a Kesser from Malchus, so then his revelation is not such that it creates a yearning to leave where I'm at, but just the opposite, it comes down here below. Similar to that, in the second and third Kaddish, the difference in the way they are drawn down, that one is only in the Pnimius Olam, as we said. Torah is only in the inner parts of the world, in the Ruchnis of the world. And the mitzvahs is only in the, not only, but it reaches even the Gashmis of the world, is because how far the Kesser reaches in the worlds above. Does it reach the Zoh? Does it reach the Malchus? The Kaddish Abbey since the second Kaddish, its descent is that becomes a crown to Zeir Anpin. Zeir Anpin Usoif Atzilus. Zeir Anpin is called the end of Atzilus. Like if you remember, we spoke recently about the Kruvim, Mekotza Echad Mizeh, Mekotza Echad Mizeh. So we're saying that one Kruv is the end of the Ulmas Ein Sof, or the end of Atzilus, that's Zeir Anpin. And the Kruv Hasheni, that's the end, meaning the beginning of the creation, that's Malchut. Sam Shechosi, since the second Kaddish is the Kesser that comes down to Zeir Anpin, therefore Shechosi Rakbe Pnimius Olam is the way it comes down is only in the inner part of the world. Ayidei Torah through the level of Torah. The Kaddish Agimul Shir is Kesser on Malchus, the third Kaddish that descends to be a crown to Malchus. The Malchus is Shirish on Ibrahim. It's already the part of Atzilus that relates and as a root to the created beings. So just like the Kesser is already relating to creation, so therefore the type of Amshacha that comes down from the Eibishter, down the Hashem Kadishim that comes out from the Eibishter, is something that relates more to the world. Amshachasi Gambachitzoinius Oilum is the way it comes down, is also in the external part of the world. Aide Maisa mitzvahs through the actions of the mitzvahs. Any questions before we go on? Okay, we're holding the third page of the Maimer, page Zion, bottom of the page, Ois Gimel, line 23. So now the Rebbe is going to introduce another concept. After explaining the 3 times Kaddish, and the 3 levels of Kesser above, and the levels of the ונקדשתי, בתוך בני Yisrael versus K'ani Hashem Mekadishchem, he's going to bring this into the idea of the famous Medrash about Hashem having crowns and sharing the crowns with the Yid. Like we said before, the Alter Rebbe in the Torah has a beer on ונקדשתי. So in the beer section of ונקדשתי, the Alter Rebbe continues, this idea of the 3 times Kaddish, the 3 levels in Kaddish, Kesser, that's higher than Chachma, Kesser of Zah, and Kesser of Malchus, is connected with what's brought on the Medrash being in Gimel Pam Kaddish. The Medrash also speaks about 3 times Kaddish. And it gives a metaphor, Mashal of Nevedina also Shol Shataras Melech. It's, for example, that a countryman made 3 crowns for the king. What's the king going to do with 3 crowns? Ma'asam Melech, what did the king do? So he placed 1 crown on his head, and 2 on the heads of his children. So the Medrash goes on to explain what is that in the Nimshal. So too, every single day, it's the ones above the Malachim, like we have in davening, are the ones that carnate before Hashem with 3 times Kaddish. They say Kaddish, Kaddish, Kaddish. The Srafim say 3 times Kaddish. So what does Hashem do with these 3 crowns? We said Kaddish is a crown, we said earlier. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is at top of page Ches. What does the Eibishter do? He places one on his head, Ushtayim Beroishay Shel Yisrael, and two of them he places at the heads of Yidden. This is what it says. We had this in last week's parsha. It says in last week's parsha, Kedoshim Tiyu Ki Kodesh Ani. That's what it says in one part of parsha. So it says in the beginning of the parsha, Kodesh Ani, I am Kodesh. V'yiskadishtem v'yisem Kedoshim says in a different part of the parsha. It says later on the parsha, last week's parsha says, V'yiskadishtem, you'll be sanctified and you will be holy. So this is where the Alter Rebbe connects the idea of the three crowns. That one the king took for himself, and two he placed on his children. He connects it with what it says Ki Kodesh Ani at the beginning of the parsha. It says V'yiskadishtem v'yisem Kedoshim later on the parsha, and the Rebbe explains what exactly which Kodesh is what. When it says I am holy, that's talking about Hashem's own crown. That's the crown they placed on his head. You will sanctify yourselves and you will be holy. These are the two crowns that he places on the heads of Yidden. That's V'yiskadishtem v'yisem Kedosh. This is the way the Alter Rebbe explains the Medrash in connection with the Psukim of last week's parsha. The Rebbe is going to point out that the Medrash itself, when explaining these three crowns, is going to use a little bit of a different division of the Psukim. So he says in line 6, to note, the Medrash, in the Medrash, the way it's written before us, so he says as follows, this is what it says, at the beginning of last week's parsha, it says, speak to the Bnei Yisrael, you shall be holy, ki kodesh on. But the Medrash leaves out the word ki kodesh on. Not like the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe leaves out the beginning of the pasuk. Davar Bnei Yisrael kedoshim tiyu. But the Alter Rebbe goes straight to kodesh on. The Medrash says, Davar Bnei Yisrael kedoshim tiyu. Then he skips over to what it says later in the parsha, v'yiskadishtem v'yisem kedoshim. So the Rebbe says that this comes out that the Medrash's way of deriving these three crowns, that one Hashem took and two were given to his children, is a little bit different than the way the Alter Rebbe does. The Alter Rebbe learns that Kodesh Ani is my crown, V'yiskadishtem v'yisem kedoshim is the two crowns that he gave in his children's head. According to the Medrash, he leaves out the word Kodesh Ani. So where exactly do we learn out about the crown that he put on his head, the crown that he put on his children's head? So he says like this, line 9, the Lechurim is a mashma, seemingly from this seems to indicate the two crowns that he placed at the head of the Yidden are what it says at the beginning of the parsha. It says, you shall be holy. That's close to the words Ki Kodesh Ani that the Medrash leaves out. He doesn't say Kedoshim Tiyu. Kodesh Ani. He skips that word. He goes Kedoshim Tiyu. That is, you will be holy, meaning you will have, in the plural, you will have two crowns. Then, what it says later in the parsha, V'yiskadishtem v'yisem kedoshim, you will sanctify yourselves and you will be holy. That according to the Medrash, the way the Rebbe is looking at this now, it's considered like one crown and not two separate crowns. So you have the crowns of the two Yidden, and then you have the crown of that. That's all the same. That's all the same crown. It's not. It's not a double set of crowns. Mlkut Torah explains the two crowns that he placed in the heads of the Eden. That's what it says later in the parsha. You will sanctify yourselves. You will be holy. When it says you will be holy, that's close to the words ki kodesh ani. Ain't a nimnus ma'ataris. Alter Rebbe leaves that out of the equation. It's not even counted as part of the crown. The only crowns that the Yidden have are Viskadishmis and Kedoshim, and ki kodesh ani is Hashem's crown. So the Rebbe is going to explain in the following ois the reason why the Medrash, even though you seem to be talking about the same thing, Hashem took one crown, put two crowns to the Yidden. Still in all, the Medrash learns it out from different psukim than what Alter Rebbe learns it out from, or almost the same psukim, but leaves out Kodesh Ani and so on. The Rebbe explains in his Dalet V'Yesh that we could explain this Halpim Hadis Medrash according to what's brought down also in that same Medrash, when it speaks about Kedoshim Tiyu, Kodesh Ani, etc., etc. So it speaks about Kedoshim Tiyu. So the Medrash says, Yachol Kamayni, you would think that just because I'm saying that you're holy, or you should be holy, or you are holy, you think you can be like me? No, that's not possible. Talmud Loimar, the pasuk goes on to say, Ki Kodesh Ani, you will be holy, but I am really holy. Kedushasi l'bayil mekdushaschem. My sanctity, my holiness is different than yours, higher than yours. There's Kedoshim to you, but then there's Kodesh on. Now, Tzemach Tzedek wonders at even the suggestion that a Yid can even think that his holiness could be like the holiness of the Eibishter. Line 21, because Tzemach Tzedek by Torah Reish Parshas Kedoshim, that Tzemach Tzedek wrote in our Torah at the beginning of Parshas Kedoshim, she said, Tamuah, this is a wonder. Vakavana Pashasi. So the Tzemach Tzedek doesn't explain why it's a wonder. The Rebbe elaborates what is the wonder that Tzemach Tzedek finds about it. And the simple intention of the Tzemach Tzedek is, how is it even possible that a Yidden should even think that they can be like Hashem, that the Medrash has to tell you, no, you're not like me. But we're going to see a contrary approach, totally other extreme in the Alter Rebbe and the Torah. Line 24, we'll put the Torah Pashan Tzavim, to the Torah Pashan Tzavim, it's explained. The Kedushashem, it says, Kedushasi l'mayla mikdushas. The Medrash says, my holiness is higher than your holiness. What is your holiness? The Alter Rebbe explains. It's referring to the holiness that you create. The Kedushashem yakedusha shenimshechas aideis rusa delasata the ma'isa mitzvah. Your holiness is the holiness that comes about through your avodah, through your inspiration from below, through the actions of mitzvah. And what the Medrash says, and my holiness, that we're saying that it's beyond your holiness, that it's such a high holiness that the inspiration from below of the actions of mitzvahs do not reach over there to tap into it. Top of test, but it could come down through tshuva. That's the idea why Baal Tshuva are higher than complete tzaddikim. That through tshuva they draw down from my holiness that's higher than your holiness, like it's explained over there in Mekut Torah. So that's why it's actually Mekut Torah Pashan Nitzavim. Nitzavim is the Mamorim pertaining to Rosh Hashanah and Tshuva and so on. So therefore, it's that type of Kedusha, that's that type of holiness that's way beyond your holiness. Your holiness, the holiness that's created from Ma'aseh Mitzvahs, that is the Kedusha of Tzaddikim. So Baal Tshuva is way higher than that. That's Kedushasi Shalamayim Kedushasi. We'll stop over here. Hashem continue tomorrow.